open up to Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 17, although we're going to be there for 4 words. That's all the text involves this Sunday. I'm not even going to have you stand. I don't actually need that, yeah. I'm not going to have you stand because it's 4 words. Actually, in the Hebrew, it's 2 words. In the Hebrew, it's no murder. In the English is you shall not murder. But it has lots of implications that is going to take probably 40 minutes to get through, and we're not going to comprehensively cover it in that 40 minutes. I'm going to count on the rest of Deuteronomy that expounds upon these 2 words in the Hebrew to give us more information about all that is involved with thou shalt not murder. Real quickly, hopefully you remember the 10 Commandments were given by God through Moses to the people of Israel in order to let them know how to live their lives. They were coming out of Egypt as slaves. They really had no clue how to govern themselves. They really had no clue on how to think about governing themselves because they'd been slaves for at least 200 years, maybe as much as 400 years in Egypt. Everything that they were supposed to think about, people thought about for them. So they were not supposed to think at all, just work, which is the epitome of a human being just being a utilitarian creature there for a tool. Of course, we don't have that problem in 21st century America. I was talking to someone yesterday at graduation exercises, and they said, I hate corporate America. They take young college students that are coming right out of college, and they suck them dry of all their energy and all their resources, and then they spit them right back out once they get old enough and aren't willing to sacrifice for the corporate dollar. We have the same problem now that they had in the 15th century BC, that we look at human life as just a tool to be used, and we really don't regard it as that which is created in God's likeness and God's image. And that'll change the way we not only look at ourselves, but it will change the way we look at other people and how we live our lives. There are actually 5 different words that could be used by Moses and by God in order to describe killing. But Moses is instructed by God to use a very specific Hebrew word, one of the 2 words here, no murder, in which it describes that which is premeditated out of revenge and out of hate. Not an accidental, not a negligence. This is, I hate your guts, you're dead. That kind of murder. And because there's so much involved in this message, and I want to lay a good foundation so as we go through the rest of Deuteronomy, I can build on that, I'm going to have to move quickly. So if you want to follow along in the sermon outlines, there's going to be some blankies to fill in. I would encourage you to do that. And also a couple of quotes especially I want you to track with me because I want to make sure that you understand, especially from point number 2 quotes I want to read, because point number 2 is the heart and soul of everything I'm going to say today. So let's get to it. The question to be answered is this: what is God's will for us in observing the 6th commandment? I believe it's this: we should do all we can to love and honor God by protecting and preserving His image and likeness in the life of mankind. These commandments that we've been given by God, the 10 commandments, build on each other. In fact, James goes as far as to say if you've broken one, you've broken them all. Because they're so intimately tied together. And it goes back to honoring God, to honoring His name, honoring the Sabbath, honoring all of life, and realizing we rest in God and not in our own striving. And all of this is built on honoring those around us, just like we honor our mother and father. We should do all we can to love and honor God by protecting and preserving His image and likeness in the life of mankind. Not only is murder sin, but anything leading up to murder is sin as well. I'm building a lot off of this, off of John 10:10, in which Jesus talks to the disciples and said, the thief has come to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come to bring life in all of its abundance. Because I really believe that's what the God of the universe wants us to enjoy, is life that is truly life. So the word for the day is life. Life. There was one time an appliance salesman who had washers and dryers and refrigerators and stoves and those kind of things. And in the front window, he put a sign: don't kill your wife, let our washing machine do the dirty work. Okay, I thought that was funny. In April of 2000, I was making my way to Lansing, and along 127 between Jackson and Lansing, as I was traveling along, I saw a big billboard. And this was an era when they had all these black billboards with white signs that talk about 10 Commandments and those kind of things. You know, that honoring your covenant, I meant that. Those kind of just pithy little statements. This is at the same time. And this one had a picture of Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, you know, the glowing and the nail prints and everything. Had a picture of the resurrected Jesus, and underneath was this caption: I said, thou shalt not kill. Eat vegetarian. Folks, that is not an appropriate use of the sixth commandment. That's not what God meant. If you're a vegetarian, good for you. I like my meat. And God says, kill and eat. You do know that's in the Bible, right? And by the way, I like mine medium rare. So if you want to know. We have a way of changing things in the Bible in order to make them suit us. I remember when Brooke Allen was at WCSR. This has been several years ago, right? Yeah, several years ago. And she was all miffed because of flattery sizing. Flattery sizing is this. You go into a store and you're pretty sure you're a size 10, but you try a size 8 dress on and it fits. Because they've cheated on the sizing, they want you to feel good about your purchase. And so that size 10 dress is labeled a size 8. None of you find this abhorring? Just screws my mind up to even think that people would think about doing this. But we've done the same thing about the 10 Commandments. We murder the unborn and we call it pro-choice. We sleep with our neighbor's wife and we say it's making love. No, it's adultery. No, abortion is murder. And I need to say this early on, otherwise some of you may be so bummed out you can't hear anything else I say the rest of this sermon. Folks, God can forgive murderers. In fact, you are one whether you've had an abortion or not. Every person here has murdered at some time in their lives, according to God's standard. And God will forgive the woman who's had an abortion just like he'll forgive you. He forgave King David when he killed his neighbor's wife's husband because he had an affair with his neighbor's wife. Yeah, that'll work. In the first service, I was getting husband and wife all twisted around. I wanted to make sure I get them right. Ah, boy. Here we go. What are the implications of observing the sixth commandment? 1, God deems any activity that lends itself towards murder as murder. If you get hot enough under the collar that your blood pressure rises, you're probably murdering in your heart. If you have this unforgivable anger towards your neighbor or towards your coworker or towards your roommate or towards your wife or your husband, you're probably a murderer. You have heard that it was said, Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, to people long ago, do not murder, but anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. And I tell you, anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. I have listed in your sermon outline several, I think you're like a dozen or more, motives for murder and related issues. These are going to go really, really fast. The first one is jealousy, because it comes up first in the Bible. Cain killed Abel because he was jealous, because Abel's sacrifice was accepted and Cain's wasn't. So jealousy can be a motive for murder. 1B, revenge. Lamech in Genesis chapter 4, killed because somebody crossed his path. In fact, he brags, I killed 70 people just because they miffed me. Wow. I think we called it today road rage. Honor and pride. Remember in Genesis 34 in which Dinah was raped by the men of Shechem? And so Jacob's 12 sons, well, we're not sure how many were involved, but at least several sons took it upon themselves to take revenge on the city of Shechem. Great strategy, by the way. I won't go into the details because there are people less than 12 years old among us. Not too many, so I'll explain it. Remember, Jacob's sons had all the men of Shechem say, well, if you want to be a part of our family and marry our sister Dinah, you need to be circumcised. And while they're going, burn the circumcision, they came in and slaughtered them all. Great strategy if you can pull it off. Honor and pride. It can be a motive for murder. National security. When Pharaoh killed all the Israeli babies, why was he doing it? Because he was scared that the Israelites were becoming more powerful than what the Egyptians were becoming. Anger and rage. That's why Moses killed the Egyptian soldier. He was angry because the Egyptian soldier had attacked a Hebrew brother of his, or fellow Hebrew. Free from oppression. That's why Ehud killed Eglon in order to get out, I think it's Midians. Was it Midians? It's in Judges chapter 3. Free from oppression. Threatened. Do you remember all the times in the Old Testament where a new king would come in and kill off all of the old king's relatives in order to make sure that none of them would have an uprising against him? That's because he felt threatened. What other motive for murder we have? Lust, desire, greed. King David. That's why he killed. Gossip and slander can be a motive for killing. Absalom killed David's reign momentarily because of his slander, because of his gossip. Remember, he set up camp in the city gate and basically usurped all of David's power, even though he was David's son? Spreading a negative word, killing King David's reign? I have a really good illustration on, as long as we're on gossip, a good way to counteract gossip and slander in the workplace. I don't know if you ever have been in a workplace where that is a problem and you wonder, wow, how can every day I go to work, I just feel really bad because it's so negative and everybody's, okay, none of you work at places like that, but I have before in the past. And this is a really good way to solve that problem. This comes from Gary Thomas in a book called Seeking the Face of God. This is what he had to say. I worked in a department store to supplement a small college pastor's salary, and the backbiting and slander there were worse than anywhere I had ever worked. After praying about the situation, I came up with a plan. When I was with one worker, I solicited a positive reply about another worker by asking a leading question. He went up to one worker and said, "Don't you think Mary is good with customers?" And the coworker said, "Yes, I do. She really knows what she's talking about." And then I waited until the next shift when I was alone with Mary, and I went and told Mary, "Susan talked to me today and told me how helpful you are with customers." "Oh, really?" Mary said. "Susan's such a sweet gal. She's a great person to work with." Guess what he told Susan the next time? "Mary said about you, you're so sweet. She's so appreciative of you." What is he doing? Creating positive gossip. Creating life in the workplace by shutting off the negative comments and instilling within them the ability to see the good things about others and building a positive environment. That's what Christians should be doing. We have come to do what Jesus did, to bring life in all of its abundance. And if we live in a death trap of gossip and slander, if we live in a place where people's lives and character and reputations are being slain at an alarming rate, we need to have a strategic thinking like Gary Thomas had and reverse it. Build positive comments into our workplace. Okay, other murder-related issues. 1J, hate. 1K, suicide. We don't have a problem with that anymore, so we'll go on. I'm appalled about how many suicides take place in this county. And if you ever are threatened to seriously consider suicide as an option, come to me. I'll give you 13 reasons not to commit suicide. Related issue is euthanasia, which is 1L. There's a really, really good book I would encourage you to read if you struggle with this topic. And it's by Johnny Erickson Tata. And the name of the book is When It Is Right to Die. And I don't know how much you know about Johnny Erickson Tata, but about 45 years ago, she was involved in a swimming accident when she was 16 or 17 years old, broke her neck right here, and is paralyzed now from the neck on down. So if anybody knows about the temptation of committing suicide or euthanasia, Johnny Erickson Tata has fought that battle many times over and won. But her book is very, very instructive. And I would highly encourage you to read what she has to say, because it'll help you to understand that it's not a private decision you make between you and your God. There's no decision we make that is just private. And very quickly, the summation of about 40 pages of her book is this: when people watch you suffer and they watch you surrender to the suffering, it gives the rest of us all permission to bail out whenever we suffer. Because if they did it, we can do it. You know what happens when people start suffering, when people start having a hard time and they bail out on their responsibilities? Anarchy happens. We as Christians are called to be responsible and fight through the pains, fight through the suffering, and to do what we know is right, no matter how much it costs. Where would we get that idea? Jesus! And if we surrender to the pain, if we surrender to the inconvenience, if we surrender to the suffering, we are announcing to the world, you don't have to be responsible, you don't have a God you're accountable to, you can just do what you want. That is not the truth. And that kind of worldview will kill a civilization. Boy, there's so much data out there, but this is another sermon, and it'll come up later in Deuteronomy, so we need to go ahead. Abortion, 1M. And unfortunately, Christians have fought the abortion battle in a lot of the wrong ways. I really love what happened with Anne. Anne was part of a crisis pregnancy center, trying to help women keep their babies instead of aborting them. And some pro-choice people were going to picket this crisis pregnancy center where Anne worked and was a director. This is actually taking place in Ann Arbor, Michigan, by the way. And these protesters had called the media and said, we're going to go and protest, and we're sure that they're just going to be upset, so you can catch this all on film and you can put it on the evening news and everything else. And so the media was there, and the protesters showed up, and they picketed and said, women's choice has a right to do whatever she wants with her body, all this kind of stuff. And Anne had to make a decision what she was going to do, because it was starting to get disruptive. This is what she felt led to do. Put together some cookies and punch and take it out to her and serve it to them. It disarmed everyone, including the media. The media went, this isn't what we came to watch, punch and cookies. And they folded up their cameras and went back to their studios. Anne chose to fight the battle over abortion out of love, and we need to fight that same battle. Is there other options that are available? Maybe. But we need to begin with love. I think she was brilliant. Okay, what are the implications of observing the sixth commandment? Number 2, murder is an attack against God. Murder is an attack against God. Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. For your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. Boy, I would love to do a study on that one sentence. For your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. You've been given a life. What are you doing with it? He goes on. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each man too. I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made man. We are killing a representation on planet Earth of God when we kill someone else. And it doesn't just happen with a knife or a gun or something like that. It happens with our words. It happens with our looks. Some of you are killing me with your looks right now. Pastor Keith, it's way past my nap time. You need to accelerate. Okay, I'll go faster. I want to read 2 quotes, though. They're in your sermon outline under point number 2. This first one is from J. Duma in the book called The 10 Commandments. Please track with me. It'll help you to stay awake. Here we go. Among all God's creatures, people are unique. They represent God on earth. God wants to live in them and have his power radiate through them in this world. Man was destined to be God's temple. He is in a position to fulfill his exalted task since he received the gifts of understanding and volition. These extraordinary gifts elevate him above the animal and enable him to exercise dominion over God's creation. That's what God empowered us to do from the very, very beginning, is to take dominion. We did, and we surrendered it to Satan right away. That's why the world's boogered up, just so you know. What are we saying here about people in general has consequences for our attitude towards individuals in particular. Whoever sheds man's blood, by his blood shall be shed, for in the image of God he made man. It is just as wrong for us to curse other people, for we must always remember that in such cases that they have been created in the image of God. Folks, if anyone came out of their mother's womb, they are to be regarded as that which carries the divine in them. In fact, in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 4, Peter encourages us to submit to God and obey him so that we might be partakers once again of that divine nature. Did you know that? But Pastor Keith, you don't know the people I work with. They don't have anything divine about them at all. I know! But we're supposed to recapture that. We're supposed to be regaining that, not surrendering to it. Which leads me to another subject. I don't know where that came from. People in nursing homes, people in ICU units that are in a coma, doesn't look like they're coming out, they're still human. I know there's a couple of parishioners that it's really hard for some of you to go and visit because they have no clue who you are. They have no clue of the relationship you have with them. They're clueless. 10 minutes, 2 minutes after you leave, they'll have no idea that you were there. But can I tell you something? Their spirit knows. Their mind may not know, their body may not reflect it, but their spirit knows. I've seen this over a dozen times. I'm talking with somebody in a CCU unit. I'm talking to somebody that's in a nursing home and they're brain dead. All the doctors say, yeah, it's just a matter of time because there's no brain activity at all. But I watch, and as I pray and I'm ministering to them with reading God's word and praying with them, their vitals change. And the nurses will actually come in and go, wow, they're looking right. I wonder what happened. I'm going, I know. Somebody finally ministered to their spirit. Somebody finally ministered to their soul. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us bear the divine image. And you better understand that about anyone that comes out of a womb, whether they're cognitive or not. Because I know a lot of you, when a person gets in a vegetative state, you surrender to them. Don't do it. You have just lowered the value of yourself. because you bear that image too. Murder is wrong. This is the second quote I want you to track with. Murder is wrong because life is a gift from God. Not only is life a gift, but also our very existence is tied to God. So God created man in his image, in the image of God. He created them male and female. He created them. We are not merely well-developed protoplasm. Humans are unique in their essence because God blew into his nostrils the soul of life, and man became a living being. Therefore, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God he made man. Since the human gift of life is endowed with the spark of divinity, that makes us different from every other life form. To take another life wrongfully can be likened to stealing from God and even viewed as murdering of something divine. Laura Schlesinger. Folks, I know that you're being inundated right now by sociologists, by philosophers, by anthropologists that are trying to shove down your throat that there's nothing different between us and the seals and us and the slugs and us and the eagles and us and any other life form. But it's a lie. It's a lie. Humans are unique. Do I even have to explain this? When have you, last time you seen a bird with scuba equipment on going underneath the sea? Why don't they? Because they don't have the spark of creativity that God gave them, that God gave us. I know, this is exciting. Folks, you are unique. You are creative. You have the ability to connect with the God of the universe. You've been given a spark of the divine. And folks, the more we think we're like the rest of the animal kingdom, the more we may be like them because we've surrendered the spirit. We've surrendered the soul. Goodness gracious, don't do it. You were made for so much more. You were made in God's image and his likeness. Live up to that high calling. Ever hear of Peter Singer? He's head of the Department of Center for Human Values out of Princeton. Peter Singer believes that all life forms are on the same level and same keel, that there's nothing superior about humans at all. So if you kill a slug, it's no different than killing your next door neighbor. Let me read a quote from Peter Singer. 6 million Jews died in concentration camps, but 6 billion broiler chickens die this year in slaughterhouses. Specious is a person that thinks that the human race is above every other species of animal. So you all, well, if you're tracking with me and believe what I'm preaching, you're a species. Species think that September 11th attack on the World Trade Center was a greater tragedy than what millions of chickens endure that day and what they endure every day because they cannot defend themselves against the concerted human appetites arrayed against them. This guy's at Princeton, the head of the human values. There's no human values in this department. I don't know why they call it the Department of Human Values. He goes on. We need to protect those in our society who cannot protect themselves. He's talking about chickens. We need to protect those in our society who cannot speak for themselves. Peter, I have a clue for you. Chickens don't talk. By the way, I love chicken. Not in a cage, on my plate. And God says, I've given you all things to enjoy, so I will. Now, if you don't eat meat, that's fine, but do not go down some hairy, crazy road in which you think all of life is the same. It's not. Humans are distinctively unique and distinctively endowed and gifted with a divine spark that God breathed in us at the very beginning that makes us unique. We need to begin to treat each other that way. Which leads me into my point 3. What are the implications of observing the sixth commandment? God desires for us to love and do all we can to protect life, even kill to protect life. Pastor Keith, you can't be serious. I'm dead serious. Dr. James Kennedy would go and speak when he was alive to many different places, and he would often go to secular universities and speak about pro-life and the horrors of abortion. And inevitably, someone would come up and say, well, I see that you're trying to save the unborn child, but do you believe in capital punishment? And he says, absolutely. And the person would say, well, you're being hypocritical because you're wanting to save a life in one instance, but take a life in another. And Dr. James E. Kennedy said, well, you've taken a pro-choice position. You support abortion. Is that, I understand you? And they said, yes. And he says, well, what's your view on capital punishment? Well, we shouldn't take anybody's life like that. So Dr. James B. Kennedy would say this, let me get this straight. You're critical of me because I want to protect an innocent baby and put to death a hardened criminal that's committed murder, but you want to protect the hardened criminal that's committed murder and put to death an innocent baby? And you're critical of me? Maybe I didn't explain that right. Did I do okay on that? Folks, the world has turned values up on its head, and they think they're right. We need to talk because I can tell several of you are not convinced. Well, don't take it up with me. Take it up with God. God desires for us to love and to do all we can to protect life, including kill. Sometimes you need to kill for self-defense. If someone comes into your house, if someone comes into my house and starts attacking my wife to kill her and me in order to rob us or do whatever they want to with us, I owe it to her out of my love for her to do all that I can to protect her. And if I say, oh, well, that's okay, I'm not supposed to hurt you, and they beat the ever-living tar out of my wife, at that moment, I surrender the God image in me. I know, it's painful. And you're saying, well, Pastor Keith, that's just your opinion. I would invite you to check the scriptures. Just war. War is never right. War is a horrible epidemic and a horrible result of our sinful nature. But I think Norman Schwarzkopf, who was the general that headed up the Persian Gulf invasion, that war that really didn't seem like a war here because it was over so fast. Listen to what he has to say. This is very, very instructive and I think reflects the heart of God. Norman Schwarzkopf on just war. A professional soldier understands that war means killing people. War means maiming people. War means families left without fathers and mothers. All you have to do is hold your first dying soldier in your arms and you have that terrible, futile feeling that life is flowing out and you can't do anything about it. Then you understand the horror of war. Any soldier worth his salt should be anti-war. And still, there are things worth fighting for. That is a God-shaped worldview towards war, towards this world. We should hate to have to go and face someone else knowing we may have to take their life. But folks, I thank God there were people like Winston Churchill, and there were people like Franklin D. Roosevelt, who were willing to take on the Japanese and the Germans And if you think, well, the world would be okay if Hitler took over, are you insane? There are crazy people in this world who care nothing about life, who care nothing about the world, who care only about ascending to the power and ascending to their own position so that they can conquer the world and be number one. And they don't care who they step on. Folks, some of you have never met those people. You live too sheltered alive. You need to get into the prisons. Maybe some of you need to just wake up at work. I'll never forget. I spent a lot of time at Pendleton Prison because I think I've shared with you before, one of my youth group members committed murder. And I spent a lot of time in the Pendleton Prison while I was still in Indiana visiting him. And there were some inmates who were in level 4 security, which is kind of high, that when I looked in their eyes, folks, there was no life there. I don't know if you've ever looked into somebody's eyes and you couldn't see life, but it is a haunting feeling. Those people exist, and those people have absolutely no qualm and no problem doing whatever it takes in order to get what they want from you. And you, as a Christian, need to stand up and resist that. It is straight from the pit of hell, and it smells like smoke. And Jesus would have done this. No, Jesus did the same thing, and Jesus will do the same thing. Just war, capital punishment, same thing. Same thing. Okay, number 4. We either love all or not at all. I wish I had more time to expound on this. I hope to be able to expound on this for the rest of the book of Deuteronomy. But can I cite 1 John 4:20 as just a teaser to get you thinking along these lines? 1 John 4:20 says this: if anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, he's a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. There's a great quote. Didn't make the sermon outline. It's online. And by the way, there's a lot more information online if you want to search this out. But it's from Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician, 17th century, 18th century, something like that. He says this: if a man loves a woman for her beauty, does he really love her? No. For the smallpox which destroys her beauty without killing her causes his love to cease. He goes on. And if anyone loves me for my judgment or my memory, does he really love me? No, for I can lose these qualities without ceasing to be. What's Pascal saying? If you don't love someone for who they are, you don't love them at all. And if you don't love your enemy, you really don't know love. That's why Jesus said, love your enemies, love your neighbor, love yourself, love your God. Who's he missing? Nobody! Love is love, period. But Pastor Keith, you just promoted just war and capital punishment and self-defense. That's not loving. You've missed my point. We do those things out of love. We do those things because there's no other response love can take except to stop it. Folks, if I've got a tumor and if I've got cancer and I've got some disease running through me, I'm going to do all I can to stop it, even if it means an amputation. Humans can be the same way. And we need to be able to step up to love. And sometimes it means taking the life of someone else. After much consideration, after much agonizing, after much looking at other options. But sometimes, what does Ecclesiastes 3 say? There is a time and a season for everything. There's a time to kill and a time to let live. Okay. Worship point. When you understand God's comprehensive, consistent, loving, just, compassionate, and merciful worldview, you will worship. Wow. so many problems in our world right now because we fail to understand Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Please do not lean on your own understanding, but in all of your ways, in all of your worldviews, please acknowledge him and submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. He has the key and the answer for the best possible life. You don't. You know how to screw up your life. You're really good at it. We all are. That's why we need to listen to the God of the universe and hear his teaching on how to live. Gospel application. Jesus loved us so much that he was willing to be murdered for us murderers. You know you really believe and know this truth when it transforms you into a new creation. That's when the love of Jesus is hitting your heart. That's when the love of Jesus has really transformed your mind, is that you begin to truly love even those people who hate you and persecute you. Jesus had some really good benefit to say about loving those that persecute us. By the way, it's Matthew 5:13 if you want to find that out. Spiritual challenge. Look to Jesus and allow his great love to bring you life that is truly life. He wants us to live. He doesn't want us to die in our own apathy, to die in our own perverted worldview, to die in our own corruption, to die in our own worldview that we're not that important, that we're just some product of cosmic goo and the lightning hit it and out of it came a person. Oh, boy, that was tough. Are we insane? Yes. Our whole culture's insane. So what? You'll never be able to get a life and love like you were created and designed to love until you see the value of life like Jesus did. You have to die to self to live life that is truly life. I want to read this story. This came from Time Magazine, March 14th, 1994. The article was written by Edward Barnes, and he talks about a sniper, a Bosnian sniper from Sarajevo. This is what he says. A Sarajevo man named Pippo is a Bosnian Serb sniper who has shot down 325 individuals for the sake of revenge. Before becoming a sniper, Pippo was a partner in a Sarajevo restaurant with a Muslim man. The two were friends as well as partners until Pippo's mother was jailed and beaten by the Muslims in jail. Pippo recalls, when she got out, she wouldn't even talk about it. That's when I picked up a gun and began shooting Muslims. I hate them all. Killing for revenge has changed Pippo. All I know how to do is kill, he said. I'm not sure I am even normal anymore. I can talk to people, but if someone pushes me, I will kill them. In the beginning, I was able to put my fear aside, and it was good. Then with the killings, I was able to put my emotions aside, and it was good. But now, they're gone. After shooting 325 people, Pippo has no more fear, but no more remorse. He has no feelings at all. He states plainly, I have no feelings for what I do. I went to see my mother in Belgrade, and she hugged me. I felt nothing. I have no life anymore. I go from day to day, but nothing means anything. I don't want a wife. I don't want children. I don't even want to think. That is a person who has died way before his heart ever stopped beating. And he died because he worked in direct opposition to the God of the universe, who is life. God tells us what he does so that we might have life in all of its abundance. If you fail to acknowledge the God of the universe and the values that he says we need to promote and hang on to, part of you will die until you get to be like Pippo, where nothing means anything. Let's pray. God, help us.